Before tanks, before drones, even before gunpowder, there was an army that terrified the world not just with its strength, but with its mind. Forget the image of impulsive warriors charging into battle. The Romans turned war into math, psychology, and precision. Every step on the field was deliberate, every silence calculated. They dismantled the enemy from within before a single drop of blood was spilled. This was an army built on discipline, fear, and precision. An unstoppable machine that fought smarter. Their enemies never saw the attack coming, and when they did, it was already too late. Today, you're going to discover the most absurd and brilliant tactics ever used by the Roman army, and understand why no one in the ancient world was ready to face them. If there was one image that froze the blood of their enemies, it was the Testudo formation, from Latin, turtle. Curious name until you saw what it did. Soldiers side by side locked their front shields perfectly, while those behind raised theirs overhead, forming an impenetrable roof. From the flanks, more shields guarded the sides. For a few moments, they stopped being men and became a war machine. They marched in silence, advanced under volleys of darts, spears, rocks, and nothing got through. Every step was calculated. The formation didn't retreat, didn't break, didn't hesitate. The purpose of the Testudo was to get close, and once it was close enough, it opened. The ranks split with precision. The soldiers emerged with swords in hand, and what had been a perfect defense turned into a deadly assault. Few were prepared for that. It was as if the Romans had created the first tank in history, but made of flesh, shields, and discipline. The only weakness, speed, and that the boldest enemies learned the hard way. If they attacked from the sides or disrupted the advance, the living wall could collapse. But almost no one got close enough to try. It was a psychological blow. The enemy, thinking they had the upper hand from afar, suddenly found themselves face to face with an intact army. Very, very close. But if the Testudo was Rome's living shield, the true secret weapon was in how their armies were organized. It wasn't just strength, it was tactical engineering. A war machine built in layers, the Triplex Acies. 3 lines, 3 levels of experience, 3 phases of destruction. At the front, the Velites. Young, agile, lightly armed, eager to prove themselves. They weren't there for direct confrontation. They were the hunters of confusion. They threw darts, provoked, tested the enemy's defenses, clearing the path for what really mattered. Right behind came the Hostati, the first real line of combat. Young soldiers equipped with shield, sword, and courage. They were the first wall of impact, the ones who felt the weight of war in their bones. If they held and won, the battle ended there. But if they failed, it wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The second line, the Principes, awaited the signal. More experienced, more resilient, they took up the fight the moment the Hostati were relieved. And this transition happened in the middle of battle, without chaos, without disarray, as if the legion were simply shedding its skin. And the final resort was reserved for the Triarii, veterans, men marked by old wars, familiar with death. They fought with long spears held firmly out front, in a stable defensive stance. They were the final wall, the line that could not break. When the Triarii entered the field, it meant everything was hanging by a thread. That's where the dreaded saying among soldiers came from. We've come to the Triarii. In other words, the most critical moment, the breaking point. This 3-layer formation was the strategy of programmed attrition. The enemy might break through a line, but each advance left them more exhausted, more exposed, while Rome, meticulously, renewed its strength. It was like fighting a wall that rebuilt itself as you struck it. But Rome didn't live on resilience alone. When it needed to strike with concentrated ferocity, it used a formation seemingly forged to tear the enemy in two. The wedge. Instead of broad lines, the legionaries formed a compact, pointed triangle with the strongest soldiers at the tip. They were the blade, the vanguard that advanced with brutality to break through dense formations, shattering the enemy's unity at its weakest point. While most military forces of the time relied on mass and volume, like the Macedonian phalanxes with their tight rows of spears, the Romans relied on strategic penetration. They didn't want to push the enemy army. They wanted to carve a mortal wound right through its center. And it worked. The wedge created panic, disorganization, and sudden ruptures. Enemy soldiers, once aligned and confident, suddenly found themselves surrounded, isolated, and without command. It was the beginning of collapse. The advantage wasn't just physical, it was mental. And even when outnumbered, the Romans knew how to deploy the wedge with surgical precision. That's exactly what they did at the Battle of Watling Street. Against thousands of British warriors led by Boudica, the Romans shaped the terrain into a funnel, waited for the perfect moment, and launched the wedge with full force. What followed was a massacre. The enemies were crushed against one another, with no room to maneuver. Rome annihilated the enemy. That was the difference. While others relied on size, Rome relied on focus. It knew exactly where to strike and how to make the enemy bleed from within. And when that enemy wasn't on solid ground, but riding the waves of the sea, Rome didn't hesitate to take its logic of war to the ocean. Even without a naval tradition, the Romans found a way to turn naval battles into land combat. Literally, the weapon of this transformation, the Corvus. It was a heavy wooden bridge attached to the deck of Roman ships. At the tip, a curved metal hook, like the beak of a raven, hence the name. When the enemy ship approached, the Corvus was violently dropped, embedding itself in the enemy's deck and locking the two vessels together. The maneuver seemed insane to any naval commander of the time. But to Rome, it was genius, because as soon as the Corvus locked in place, legionaries crossed the bridge as if it were solid ground, invading the enemy ship with shields, swords, and military discipline, things the opposing sailors were utterly unprepared to face. This tactic secured Rome's first major naval victories, especially in the battles of Mylae and Ecnomus, when they faced the Carthaginian navy, one of the most feared in the Mediterranean. The Romans didn't win by sailing better. They won because they changed the rules of the game. However, the Corvus had a cost. Its weight made the ships unstable in open sea. During storms or quick maneuvers, it could be more of a burden than an advantage. Over time, and with the evolution of the Roman navy, the Corvus was phased out. But it served its purpose, because Rome didn't need to copy the great seafarers. It invented a way to bring them onto its own battlefield, even if that battlefield was the ocean. While I was planning this video, I became obsessed with understanding what drove Rome to make such cold, precise, and ruthless decisions. And that's when I found the book Rome, Strategy of Empire, and honestly, completely changed how I see the Roman Empire. It's not just about wars, it's about control, power, and strategy in their purest, most brutal form. That book was the main source of inspiration for this video. Each chapter reveals how Rome thought like a machine, and you can get access to it too easily. Just scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the video description. If the Romans were able to turn the sea into solid ground, they also knew how to turn weakness into a trap. And few tactics illustrated that better than the feigned retreat, one of the most daring and brilliant maneuvers in the Roman arsenal. To the enemy's eyes, it looked like the beginning of a collapse. Roman soldiers breaking formation, abandoning positions, retreating in disorder. A spectacle of apparent panic. But none of it was real. It was military theater. The retreat was carefully rehearsed. Trained soldiers acted as if they were in desperate flight, provoking the enemy's thirst for victory. And as the enemy fell into the trap and advanced in a disorganized pursuit, the trap closed. Hidden units waited on the flanks, archers in position, cavalry ready to strike the rear. The terrain, prepared in advance, became a labyrinth, and what seemed like an easy victory for the enemy turned into a sudden massacre. This tactic demanded something few forces in the ancient world possessed: absolute discipline, staying in character under pressure, resisting the urge to fight, retreating at the right moment without breaking. Everything was part of the plan. Rome used this technique in several campaigns, such as in Agrigentum in Sicily and against rebels like Molon in the east. But it also saw it used against them. Viriathus, the leader of the Lusitanians in the Iberian Peninsula, became a master of this art, fooling the Romans with planned retreats and turning the terrain into his weapon. But if some knew how to use the environment to deceive, Julius Caesar took that concept to a whole new level. Instead of exploiting the terrain, he rebuilt it completely, stone by stone, stake by stake, and thus was born one of the greatest strategic feats in Roman military history. The Siege of Alesia, 52 BC. The Roman general faced Vercingetorix, the most charismatic leader of the Gallic resistance. Surrounded by mountains and tens of thousands of enemies, Caesar made a decision that would seem suicidal to any other commander. He didn't attack the city, he surrounded it, but not just with soldiers, with engineering. Caesar ordered the construction of an inner ring of fortifications around Allesia, a belt that blocked any attempt at escape. Towers, palisades, deep ditches filled with stakes. Every meter was an obstacle designed to contain the besieged. And not satisfied with that, he ordered a second line of fortifications facing outward, toward the open field. It was a shield against the Gallic reinforcements that would inevitably come to free the city. 2 rings, one to contain, another to resist. In the middle, the Roman army itself. The plan seemed insane. Any mistake and Caesar would be crushed from both sides. But what looked like madness was, in fact, total control. When the enemy reinforcements arrived and attacked from the outside, while Vercingetorix pressed from within, the Roman defenses held. And when the Gauls tried to escape, they found only stakes, walls, and death. Caesar won without launching a single frontal attack. He let hunger, desperation, and time do the work. When Alesia finally fell, it wasn't just a city that surrendered, it was all of Gaul. The Siege of Alesia became the greatest symbol of Roman military engineering, a reminder that, for Rome, winning a war didn't always mean engaging in combat. But when combat was inevitable and the enemy came in the form of living monsters with ivory tusks, the Romans didn't let fear take over. They studied it and turned even terror into a weakness. That's how they faced war elephants. These giants, brought by enemies like Pyrrhus and the Carthaginians, weren't just weapons, they were walking psychological shocks. They advanced by crushing shields, trampling ranks, destabilizing entire formations with the sheer weight of their presence. At first, the Romans suffered, but they learned quickly. They created strategic corridors in their infantry lines, allowing the elephants to pass through without causing damage. As soon as the beasts broke through, side attacks followed, targeting their eyes, legs, and most vulnerable flanks. The giant, wounded and out of control, became a threat to its own allies. At other times, Rome resorted to even more unpredictable methods. Flaming pigs. Yes, historians recorded the use of pigs covered in burning oil, released onto the battlefield. Their piercing screams and the smell of fire created panic among the elephants, who went berserk, broke formation, and often turned against the very army that had released them. That's what happened in battles like Beneventum and Zama, where the elephant's superiority turned into chaos. Rome didn't try to match the brute force of the animals. It used strategy to defeat them. That was the essence of Roman power: to win with the mind, to control through calculation, and to keep everything under the weight of absolute discipline. Rome was a machine built on logic and kept running by an unbreakable code of obedience. And when that code was broken, punishment didn't come from the enemy, came from within. That's where decimation came in, one of the most severe, cruel, and effective punishments the ancient world ever witnessed, reserved for units that disobeyed orders, fled from combat, or showed cowardice. Decimation was a lesson carved in blood. The soldiers were assembled and divided into groups of 10. In each group, one man was chosen by lot and killed by his own comrades. There was no honor in the act, only horror. The execution was carried out with sticks, stones, any blunt object. It was slow, cold, intentionally humiliating, and it didn't end there. The survivors were forced to eat barley rations, sleep outside the camp, and carry the weight of shame before the entire legion. They weren't just punished, they were marked. But Rome knew exactly what it was doing. That brutality kept the machine intact. It reminded everyone that obedience was not optional, that the fear of the enemy could never outweigh the fear of dishonor. And perhaps that's exactly why Rome became the most feared army in history. There was no room for weakness, no margin for error. Every man marched as part of a greater machine. A machine built to conquer, subjugate, and never retreat. It was this cold, disciplined, and brilliant mindset that built the greatest empire of the ancient world. Now, I want to hear from you. Which strategy surprised you the most? What's more terrifying, the cold logic of Roman strategy or the blind obedience of its soldiers? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story and want to see more epic content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. In the video appearing on screen, we'll reveal the secrets of the Canis Pugnax, the war dog of the Roman legions.